the fact is that when he had the African-American accent or the Mexican-American accent, it was more likely that the landlords would say that the place had already been rented or it was no longer available.
Let me start with this basic question. How much does having an accent play into how we perceive the person who has the accent?
A lot. I mean, I think including all the other ways that people present themselves. So the way they dress and the way they move and their, all of those, we're instantly sizing people up. So, when we're talking about that, I actually looked up the work of a linguist who's done some great work. I'm going to mention him because if somebody wants to find a great short TED Talk that outlines what I'm about to talk about, this would be the guy. His name is John Baugh, B-A-U-G-H. But he's done a lot of research on linguistic profiling, and he defines linguistic profiling as when a person is denied access to otherwise available goods and services by phone, sight unseen, based exclusively on the sound of their voice. So it's equivalent to racial profiling, but linguistic profiling is you don't even see them. It's just their voice. And you're going to decide on the basis of that whether you make something available. And his research was based on, he's actually a very skilled he's dexterous, he's African-American, but he can sound white, so to speak. And he can also do a very good kind of Mexican-American accent. And his based on his own experiences, he did linguistic research where he would call up prospective landlords who had apartments available for rent in one of those three accents. And, the fact is that when he had the African-American accent or the Mexican-American accent, it was more likely that the landlords would say that the place had already been rented or it was no longer available. And so that's an example of linguistic profiling where your accent is actually denying you access to things that you have a right to get.
Right. There was a study I was looking at on that very note when you mentioned the phone calls. Where accents had a major effect on a customer service perception. So it turns out that many companies such as Apple and Dell and I think Capital One have, I guess, been obliged to close down their overseas customer services call centers. Those call centers, they relocated them to the US because of all this customer dissatisfaction, and customers' perception towards foreign call service employees was the main motive for this relocation. And I guess the conclusion being that consumers were assessing call services differently based on call center location and cultural similarities. Now, you wouldn't know any of those things. You wouldn't know where the person is. You're just simply basing that on the way they're speaking, right? What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I think it's awful, but in the sense that judgments that deny people something they're entitled to is awful. But that's about what we do with this information that we receive through our senses, whether it's the way someone talks or the way someone looks, skin color, our perceptions about their class, all those things. But I've often tried to also make the point that the fact that we can be so discriminating in the other sense of the word, that we can hear an accent and be able to identify so many things from that is actually kind of amazing. And we do it kind of unconsciously. So, there's all kinds of information that we're, it's like a computer. We're just computing all kinds of information based on sounds. So I deplore the negative things we do with it, like, oh, this person sounds different, therefore they're less than. But, like I said, I remember being a kid and remember the first time this dawned on me, hearing our parents talk about someone having an Italian accent or a Spanish accent, and I couldn't hear the differences when I was a kid. And I thought they had some superpower. Like, I was just amazed that they could identify, you know, what country people were from their accent. I mean, now I can do it, but it really, I remember that sort of being dazzled by it. And I still think it's a dazzling thing that we can do. I just wish we didn't use it for bad things.